Good morning, everyone. It's great to be back in Palm Beach from AIPAC. And as you know, a lot of challenges that were discussed at AIPAC. Internal, local politics in Washington, anti-Semitism around the world. And as you know, the Prime Minister had to leave in the middle of the conference to go back because a war broke out. Hamas started sending rockets into Israel. And the overwhelming takeaway message from AIPAC this year, with 18,000 people in attendance, was the idea of unity. And that we have to find common ground, and we have to work together, and we have to end the bipartisan and the polarization within the Jewish community and the broader American community, because the only way we could face our enemies is through our unity. Winston Churchill once said, history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. The message was that history is in our hands. The history of tomorrow is in our hands. And when we look back, many speakers talked about if there was only an AIPAC, if there was only a state of Israel, if there was only an IDF during the 30s, how things may have been differently. And so the question is now, how will we make sure that things are different? But there's always a spiritual message, and that is, of course, the message of this week's Parsha, where in the beginning of the Parsha, the Torah talks about the 8th day, the day that the Mishkan was erected. And it says, Vahi Bayom HaShmini, and there were a number of offerings brought on the celebration of the opening day. And right away in the beginning of the Parsha it says, Kechu sir izim lachatas, bring a goat for a sin offering. And so the commentaries ask, the sages ask, what is this goat that was brought for a sin offering? And our sages say that on the opening day of the Mishkan, the 8th day, when Aaron and his sons began to serve in the temple, they had to bring a goat to atone. For what sin? The sin of the sale of Joseph. Why a goat? Because if you remember, they took his coat of many colors and they dipped it into goat's blood to conceal their crime and tell their father, we found this coat with blood on it, a wild animal must have torn him up and eaten him alive. And therefore, on the day of the opening of the Mishkan, the opening message is, if you want Hashem to dwell in your presence, you need to have unity. And you need to put aside sibling rivalry, but rather you have to have brotherly love, Avat Yisrael. And then if there's unity amongst the Jewish people, then God will dwell in your midst. And it's interesting that as we approach the holiday of Pesach, this is one of the central messages of Pesach. We all know that at the Seder, we dip the karpas in salt water. And everyone says why, because the 4 questions the kid asks, why is tonight different? But if you want to do things that are different, there are many things you could do that are different. Why this? And our Rabbi says to remind us of the brothers dipping the coat into blood, dipping the karpas. And the word karpas is from the word kisones pasin, the coat of many colors, pas. And therefore the subtle message of the dipping of the karpas into salt water is, we're talking about how we got out of Egypt. Let's talk subtly how we got into Egypt in the first place. Because there were hatred amongst brothers, and we sold a brother into slavery, and that led us down to Egypt. We don't want to talk about it publicly. It's a little embarrassing, family feuds. But we have to remember how we got into slavery in the first place. And the message is, the key to redemption is unity. The path to slavery is rivalry and division. And therefore, when you come to Abby, you see 18,000 people together, you see love. And yes, we could point fingers and find fault in each other. But we could also see the good. And I'll share with you a story that someone mentioned in passing during the AIPAC speeches. There's so many speeches, but one thing, many things you remember. So this guy says that in one of the breakout sessions, he says that his son was doing very poorly in school. And they went to a parent-teacher meeting. And the teacher was saying he's failing, we don't know if he's going to pass high school, we may have to have him repeat the grade. It was really depressing, you know. And he says that his wife and him got back in the car and they start driving home from the teacher-parent conference. And he says there's like this tenseness in the car. They're not talking, they're just thinking about what's going to be with this boy. They've been struggling for years with him. And suddenly his wife turns to him and says, honey, I think we have to start thinking about the situation in a whole new way. And he goes, really? Oh, sure, I'd love to. I'm all ears. Tell me. She says, at least we know our son is not cheating. He's failing, but at least he's not cheating, right? There's always something positive to see. And that's the message of unity. That's the message of the opening day of the Mishkan. Let us go together with strength and unity. And then, as in all of history, like in the story of Esther, we're coming from, when we're together, we see each other's merits, not each other's faults. We will ultimately be successful and prevail, as Jewish history has always shown us.